Welcome everybody to Infinite Impact Radio and TV, the show for impact influencers by impact influencers with world-changing missions. And we've got one of those with us today. Very excited to have Anton Gray with us, business coach, author, and speaker who focuses on a lot of things, but one of those you were telling me was mindset with entrepreneurs and business owners, helping them to get the mindset so they can quickly launch a new business. Did I get that right? Or is it somewhere in that range? Feel free to
No, you definitely got it right, Evans, man. It's
right.
we'll talk about it a little bit in depth, but yeah, you got it
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
definitely. Cool. Well, cool. And you're also the host of Peace of Mind, the Mindset Behind the Mission, which
Yeah.
is a Facebook Live show you do. And you also do that as a podcast too, I believe, right?
Yep, working on getting everything up and running for the full-fledged podcast, but it started as a Facebook Live show to where I get to interview great folks like you, man, to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and the downs of entrepreneurship, business, and life.
Yeah, and it was fun. I was actually on that yesterday, so we get to
Yeah.
spend 2 days together. And that comes on every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, correct?
Yep, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just peaceofmindlive.com.
Yeah, go check it out because it was fun. It was really a fun interview. I know he's a great interviewer. I need to go back and watch some of the past ones because I know you've probably had some great guests on there.
It's,
So
it's weird being on this side, man.
yeah, I bet. I know. I actually like I like when people interview me and sort of start pulling stuff out of me. It's fun
Yeah.
times. So along with that, you and I are actually also in a book together. We need to mention that because it will probably, by the time this podcast is live, I'm looking at the calendar, it'll either be coming out like a week later or either that week possibly. So that
Yeah.
book, we're in it together, the two of us, along with like 68 other entrepreneurs, I think.
Yep.
So if you would just sort of share that with people, a little bit about that book so they can keep their eyes out for it.
For sure. So that's actually how I met Evans is through this book, Air Fryer Secrets, which don't let the title fool you. The title kind of throws you for a loop, but it kind of started as a big joke, a running joke with a great digital marketer by the name of Kevin Quinn. And he's well connected throughout the community. And he said, you know what, I think we got something here. Let's bring some folks together, bring all of our brains together, write a chapter in this thing and give people, what they need as it relates to just entrepreneurship, digital marketing, everything online. It's so many different topics in this book. It's almost going to be like the digital marketing Bible, man. I can't
Yeah.
wait for it. Yeah.
It is. I know. I don't remember if it was you and I talking about this yesterday or not, but it was somebody, and I think of it as almost like Steve Larson talks about just in time learning. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm having an issue. I'm getting ready to launch a new lead generation campaign. Maybe I need some ideas or solutions. Boom, you go pick up that book. There's going to be a chapter right there
Yeah.
just for you. So, I mean, it
Yeah.
covers so many topics. It's going to be great. I can't wait. I'm excited for that thing. Um,
I am too.
yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun little ride, and it's going to be valuable to so many people. And here's the one thing that I haven't really mentioned before, but 100% of the profits are actually going to Operation Underground Rescue, which is a nonprofit. So it's for a great cause as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I like most about it, man. That's one of the main reasons I got involved when I heard, what the project was all about. And then the fact that, all of the proceeds were going to a charity, then it was a no-brainer at that point. So we're providing value to people and giving back. So, I mean, that's what it's
Yeah.
all about, man.
And it'll help spread the word on that cause the more we talk about it, like you and I are doing right here. So
Yeah.
that's great too. Okay, so let's dive a little bit into Anton and what you do and how you serve your community, because I know that I was intrigued when I heard the name of your live, the peace of mind, the mindset behind the mission, because a lot of the people listening to Infinite Impact Radio are mission-driven entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
people that want to create a positive impact in the world. And the first time that you and I connected and I saw that was attached to you, I was like, I got to get him on the show. So
Yeah.
if you would, not necessarily related to that right now, but just overall, if you don't mind just sort of sharing a little bit about your background, your origin story, and how you got from where you were to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, one, thank you, man, for even having me on this show. I'm starting to follow your stuff a lot more, just from us connecting initially, man. I was like, I don't know this guy Evans, but I like him already, man. Just,
I appreciate it.
you're a good-hearted person and always willing to help. But yeah, so my background, well, now I'm a business coach and strategist, and I help entrepreneurs master their mindset, their messaging, and their marketing, so that they can ultimately, increase their impact, amplify their mission, and ultimately make more money. And so my background is in consulting. I was a business and tech consultant for probably about 16 plus years. And I also served in the military as an operations specialist between the U.S. Army and the U.S. Air Force for 15 plus years as well. Well, 15 years. And, it was one of those things to where, believe it or not, man, my entrepreneurial story starts a long time ago when I was about 9 years old. My dad and both my parents, they were entrepreneurs. They owned barbershops and beauty salons throughout the local area that we lived in. And so my dad was my first boss, right? And he just, I spent a ton of time in their place of business. And he asked me, he said, "Kid, you want to work?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" But unfortunately, man, I love my dad. Dad, I love you, but you were a terrible boss. He was the worst boss ever, man. And so, like, it was one of those things where he was supposed to pay me, and then I never really got paid, and I got tired of hearing, "Hey, it's a family business." I'm like, I didn't think this was how this whole work world was supposed to work. And so, I started doing odd end things for the barbers that were there, and I started making lunch runs. This was like the thing that really clicked for me as far as entrepreneurship, because it was like Uber Eats before Uber Eats, right? The barbers
Right.
carried cash. Their schedules were jam packed, so they never went to get lunch. And I was like, "Listen, I got to go get my lunch. You guys want me to pick you something up?" And what I found out was most barbers are terrible at math as well, right? And so they'd give me 10, $15 for a $6 sandwich and say, "Keep the change." And I'm just like, wait a second here. I'm on to something. So that started adding up really quick. And that's when that entrepreneur bug bit me, to where I realized that if you were willing to, solve problems for people, then you could potentially make a lot of money. And so I got into the work world. My parents kind of steered me towards the school route, college, get a job, all of that. I think they understood how challenging being an entrepreneur was, and how they had up and down months and all that good stuff. But so that's the path I went, the regular path, man. I went to college, got good grades, got a good job, and I started climbing up through the corporate ladder. But there was always that part of me just pulling at me, like, dude, you can be doing way more than just this job. And I think as I got further and further in my career, especially after I had kids, my wife and I have 4 kids. Well, she's got 5. I'm the 5th kid, but I've got 4 kids.
Yeah.
But but
That's the same in our household. I wonder if that's how it works in a lot of these households.
it is, man. Listen, I'm never growing up, man. But as I got older and I had kids, I started just kind of look at things differently. And the 9 to 5 grind, man, it was great, but at the same time, it started getting old, and it was just one of those things where my inner voice got louder and louder and louder as the years went by. Like, dude, you're settling. You could be doing so much more. You can be helping so many more people. But there was always that fear of, well, how do I leave behind a strong 6-figure salary and the security and all of that people aspire to have. I had it, and it put me in a very weird space, because I was grateful, for the position that I was in, but at the same time, I was always curious whether I was settling and whether there was more out of life for me, and it pulled on me so hard, to where it really took a shot at me when it came to health. I started developing stress and anxiety and all of that. And I hadn't even realized it until I went to the doctors one time, and they wanted me to get tested for depression. And I
Wow.
was like, wait a second, what? No, hell no. I'm not doing that. Like, why would I even have to do that? But then I started to really look at, everything, and how the little things that had been piling up over the years. And, that's kind of when I took it amongst myself I was like, you know what? I had an inner conversation. I was just like, you've got to make a change, dude. You've got to make a change, because if you don't, right, you're either going to continue to go through this life just miserable, waking up to where I had to like drag myself out of bed and And, to the point where every time I went to open my office door, I'd have like a fit of anxiety, and it was weird. And so I said, listen, I've got to put a plan in place, because if I don't, I'll always have that what if. And I think that is what really started to scare me when I came home and I looked in the face of my kids, and that what if, the positive what if, well, the regret, the what if of regret started speaking louder of the what if when it comes to losing, the potential security and all of that stuff. So it's, that's a roundabout way of saying, now I'm here, man. Now I'm in entrepreneurship, and my wife has my back. I really just decided, you know what, I'm going to make the jump, and I feel that my skill set is enough to start really helping people. It took me finding a coach to help me. Ironic, right? A business coach with a coach, but it took me finding a coach to say, hey, dude, listen, this is your real talent. This is your real skill set. Here's how you can relate everything that you've been doing in the work world and roll it into entrepreneurship and make an even bigger impact. And that's kind of what drives me today.
Yeah, I love that. Well, there's two things I want to jump back on that. And the first one, the coach part, there is, you hear this a lot. And I think it's funny because the higher you go up into the world of successful people, and I'm just wondering if you agree with this or if I'm just making all this up, but you look at professional athletes, you look at successful entrepreneurs like Russell Brunson, Alex Sharfin, people like that, they still have coaches, and I'm not talking about like the coach that coaches the team, but even they have, athletic, like Steph Curry has a trainer, a coach that trains him on these crazy skills. And that's how he became who he became. He was always good. He was always successful, but now he would have never become the MVP without that.
Right.
So I think that's a good point that you make. And I think so many entrepreneurs need to look at that and say, and I actually heard this, like if your coach doesn't have a coach, then you need to find another coach.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things, man, where I like to say it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. Yeah. Right. And it's good to have an outside eye looking in and showing you kind of, how you can be using your talents and your gifts and your abilities a little bit differently to continue to grow. That's one thing I love about athletes, man. And the whole self-made, I really don't believe in self-made. I think that even if they do it on their own, there's always a point to where they were either inspired by somebody or they were motivated by somebody, whether that was somebody that told them no and they said, hey, I'm going to show you, right? Or something like that. But there's always some type of influence that pushes people to the next level. And so that's why I feel that coaches are incredibly important. I mean, if you look at all the greats, like you said, every successful person that we see or that we idolize or that we admire more than likely has somebody either before them that, guided them to the point that they are, or behind them that's helping them out. And so that's why I feel it's incredibly important.
Yeah, definitely. Whether you call them mentors, coaches, whatever, everybody has them that's really successful. And I love that the way you framed that, the way you said that, where it's like, you can't see outside the frame when you're in it, or I just butchered what you said, but
no, it's all good, man. I like it.
but yeah. So and the one other thing I wanted to just go back a little further, before we move forward, is something you and I touched on this a little bit, and your story was a little bit different, but it's the thing that I see this with almost everybody that comes on here. Almost everybody, it's the polarity where they're doing something and it just doesn't feel right, or it's not the right thing, and then they switch to this other thing, and it's such a cool journey to, I'm sure it doesn't feel cool while you're in it, but when you take this step back and look at all the people I've interviewed on this show, they all seem to go through that experience. So it seems to be that this is something that we shouldn't feel like, woe is me, this is happening to me. I mean, look at what it's doing for others like yourself. It's leading you to where you need to go. But I think the key is that life will teach you, it will continue to teach you lessons until you learn them. And so with you, it was, your health and feeling, worn down, anxious, depressed, or whatever. But with other people, it may be something else. So how would you say to the entrepreneur, who thinks they may be going through this, who thinks that they have this mission, that they want to switch out of where they are, which is a comfortable place, but maybe not a healthy place, what is something that they need to do to be able to go from here to here? Because we know it's a tough little decision and tough jump,
Yeah.
especially when you have a family and when you're responsible for taking care of the bills. So what would you suggest to somebody in that position?
To be honest, I'd say it's weird, right? I say definitely don't do it how I did it. I just said, screw it, I'm out. Right?
Right.
Looking back, I might have done it a little bit differently. I would have definitely side hustled my way into it, only because of the circumstances, right? Like you said, having a family and having to provide and things like that. And it's got to be a weird place, because we also hear, you can log on social media and you see all in or get out type memes
Right.
and things like that. But I'd say really step back and make a decision as to what you want your life to look like, right? So 3 years, 5 years, 10, 20 years, like really create a vision for your life. And once you take a step back and really decide what that looks like for you, now you can kind of reverse engineer it and work backwards and really come to a realization whether what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is either adding to that vision or taking away from it. And like I said, it's, I had a lot of inner conversations. For me, my journey started literally with mindset, and that's where, I think a lot of people have to start. Although it's not the sexiest thing in the world. Most people are just like, oh, here's that mindset crap again. But I truly think that it's a critical piece of the process and in the journey, because as soon as you start to shift your thinking a little bit, then it's getting a hold of that inner voice. Everybody has some sort of inner voice. That inner voice is either for or against, right? Because and I was actually looking at this today. And hopefully I don't butcher it. I do a lot of personal development, so one of my favorite speakers is Les Brown, and he refers to I forgot exactly who it is, but anyway, he says if there's no enemy within, then the enemy outside can do us no harm, right? And for me, that means that inner voice, right? Because there's going to be a lot of things coming at you, whether it be good or whether it be bad. Like, you can believe in yourself and have so much confidence. And then I think a lot of us, we care too much about what everybody else thinks, and we let their opinions hold us back. So, when it comes to getting started, a lot of people are going to start thinking about the what if, and they're going to start making all this crap up in their head that is negative, because usually, when it's something like you said, uncomfortable and unknown, we start to make things up in our mind, the what ifs, and these what ifs become incredibly extreme. And so it forces us from moving towards it. But as soon as you start that mindset work, man, and you get that inner voice on your side, no matter what somebody else says, or no matter what challenges you go through, that inner voice is that, like, dude, I got your back. Right. Yeah. Versus a lot of people, when they have that inner voice and they get this idea that I'm going to do this and I'm going to climb this mountain. And then somebody says, no, you're not. Why the hell are you going to do that? Like, what are you thinking? Right. And if that inner voice isn't on your side, that inner voice might whisper in your ear, they're right. Right.
Yeah.
Why are you thinking this? And you often talk yourself right out of the thing that you're looking to move towards. But making a decision what you want your life to look like, and then really stepping back to see whether your actions are adding to that or taking away from it.
Yeah, I love that. Sort of beginning with the end in mind. If you know that, then you can picture that and move towards it. So I had that same discussion with somebody earlier. We were talking about inner work, which very important. People listening to this, I know they're going to love what you're sharing. But she was discussing about finding your authentic self and rising into that authentic self, and once you do that, not only does it help you overcome the objections from the ego mind, or whatever you want to call it, or from the outside world, but it also puts you in a position where you have no competition as an entrepreneur. Because if you are yourself, there's only one you. But once you are your true authentic self, you're going to attract the right people into your world.
I agree.
So that was something that we were talking about. And I'm like, I'm so glad to hear two people in a row now come on the show and really focus on mindset, because it's funny, because I think it's like one of these little terms that people are going through now. Entrepreneurs talk about it all the time. Oh, mindset.
Right.
But I don't know about you, but I have a feeling that many of them are using the word, but they're not actually taking the time to sit with themselves and actually
Yeah,
get to know themselves, because that's a scary place for a lot of us. I know it was for me,
it is.
you know.
I agree. It
So
is,
I love
and
that.
it's a tough conversation to have, man.
Yeah,
The inner conversation, right? Because you know the truth. It's hard to lie to yourself,
exactly.
right?
You can't bullshit yourself,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So yeah, I love that. So I want to get to your show a little bit, because one thing I love is publishing and getting our messages out there. And I'm just curious if, by doing your Facebook Live every week, your show, do you find that that is attracting the right people into your world, that's bringing people into your world that then become your clients, your coaching students? Or is it, did you go in with that intent? If so?
It is, but that wasn't the intent. The intent for me is I do a lot of outreach online and I do a lot of networking. And when I got started on my journey, I did a lot of scrolling and just watching, right? And so it's it was not even sure exactly who it was. I think it was Marshall Gillen. But I saw him going live every day and just sharing his story. And I reached out. I was like, man, dude, you're an inspiration. Um, and in my mind, I'm like, he's an internet star, right? Because we just sit and we just scroll, and those people seem unreachable. But he reached out literally like a minute later, and we had a full-fledged conversation, talked about entrepreneurship, talked about all that good stuff. I'm like, these people that we watch online, man, they're real. They're just like you and I. But I know that there are a lot of people that sit behind the keyboard wishing that they could do more and all of that. So I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna do my outreach because I'm a pretty outgoing guy, and I'm gonna meet people. I'm a sucker for a handshake, man. So if I get in a room full of people, I want to meet people and hear their stories. And the more people that I spoke with and got to learn their stories, I'm just like, this is so different than the everyday what you see on social media. Like, what do you mean? I can't just open my laptop, press a few buttons, and go buy a Lamborghini in 2 days, right? Like
Right.
that's what it
Right.
looks like sometimes. But when you talk to these people, man, and you hear the real stories, I was like, you know what? These are the stories that drive me, because then it makes it real. It doesn't just look like it's unreachable, right? Or untouchable, because now you get to see the side where people are going through it. And so a big part of my show was really just to bring that side of entrepreneurship out and to reach out to these people that I see as successful and that I know a lot of other people see as successful, bring them on and see if they'll give us, some of the side of the not just the ups, but the downs as well. Because I think that the downs are what a lot of people relate to, right? And the whole goal of the show is really just to have the audience relate to the speaker and say, damn, like even when we talked about Evans was going through this, or Evans had this challenge in his business, and this is what he overcame. So like when we talked about your story and how you reached that point where you're just like, man, we're helping, we've got all the success, but I know I could be doing something different and making more of an impact. A lot of people are going through that internal struggle. So when they hear it from somebody else and they hear it from somebody else's perspective, then it's one of those things as entrepreneurs, in early set entrepreneurs, you feel lonely, right? And it brings that togetherness where you're just like, you know what, I'm not alone, I'm not the only one going through this. Evans did it and I can do it too, right? I can continue to move forward regardless of the obstacles, regardless of the challenges and all of that. So that was the whole purpose of the show. That's one of the reasons I do it. And it also gets me I get to connect with great folks like you, man. Like I love that part of it. And so, like I said, maybe a part of me is just being selfish, because I do go back and I watch the replays and I take notes and I'm just like, damn, that's how they're killing it. And so, yeah, it's a good thing. But the reception has been pretty good by the audience. People like it, and I like to get input as to who they want to see on and all of that. But it does bring in some business. It's like you said, it's about publishing, putting that content out there. And, I'm able to kind of meet some new people in different circles that I probably would have never been able to without having that as a
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree 100%. The one thing I like that you said that I connected with in that whole story was the very beginning, when you talked about how you spent a lot of time just scrolling and watching others, and you were sort of hesitant, maybe fearful to get into that, not, I won't say the game, but to actually just sort of start putting yourself out there. So other people that are watching and listening to that, I went through the same thing. It's the same thing. So that's two of us now. So everybody listening and watching this, if you're going through that now, know that all it takes is, to do like we did and just take that first step, because, you're not alone. It's sort of a scary thing. I remember that the first time I reached out and was like, okay, I made a deadline. I was like, I'm putting a deadline down. I'm starting this podcast. I've had it in my mind for a while. I've watched some people. I know who I want on it. And then I started asking people, and I was like, who's going to be on a podcast that doesn't even exist? And I was really blessed and grateful, because people that I asked were like, yes, I'd love to. Yeah. And I think that's something people have to get over, like we've both been through this. And so you're not going through it alone. And people are more than willing to come on if you approach them in an authentic manner with a serve first attitude. They want to be on your show. They like it. They want to connect. And like what you said, I think we all do this, at least for myself in one way, is selfish as well, because I just like the connection, and I like the message you're sharing today. I look at it as the message that I'm supposed to receive today, not that I was making to share with my audience. So sorry, audience, I hate to say that, but it always seems to be that way. You listen, you get the message at the right moment that you need it. Yeah. And people like yourself always give that to me when I interview you. So I'm grateful for that and appreciate you for being on and doing that.
I appreciate that. Want to hear something funny about it?
Yes.
The idea for the show, believe it or not, was something I almost swept it under the rug. And I wasn't going to do it. Like, I came up with this grand idea. I was like, oh, I got this vision for it. But I saw it somewhat as a distraction from like something else that I was supposed to be doing. But luckily I was surrounded by a group of individuals, part of my mastermind group. And they were like, dude, no, you've got to do this. Like, you have to do this, because it's a message that needs to be heard and it's needed. And so if it weren't for them, here I am 40 plus shows in. If it weren't for them, I might not have ever taken that next step and did it. And so, it's one of those things. I look back, I was like, damn, I almost nixed this thing, man. Yeah. I almost killed it before it even got started.
Yeah. And that can happen. I mean, I love the fact that now, one, you've brought up the fact that you have coaches, that you have a coach, that's important, but it's also important, like you said, a mastermind group. Yeah. Having other peers around you that maybe are one or two steps ahead of you on the journey, maybe walking side by side, and even a step or two below you, so you can serve them, but the people above you can serve you, and you can pass that on to the people below you to keep it going. So I think I'm with you. I think that everybody listening to this, if you don't take anything else away from this, I think you should really focus on building your network of other like-minded entrepreneurs, because that has been the biggest thing for me recently, as far as momentum wise, and making me sort of step into my authentic self too, because I start to feel the power that comes from you, from Anton. I'm pointing at Anton for those that can't see, and being his authentic self and sharing himself. And I see it's like, okay, he had struggles, he had successes, and we all are in this together. So I think it's really important everybody takes that away and says, hey, get in a network, get a coach, get some accountability, get in a mastermind, something, but make sure that it's something that fits with you and your mission, your mindset, and people that you want to hang out with. So yeah,
totally agree.
Sorry, I just
totally
sort of
agree.
I took that and ran with it. I couldn't help it. Such a powerful moment. It felt like when you were talking about that it just felt right.
I totally agree. Totally agree with you there.
Couple things I want to cover before we wrap it up. One, I always like to talk to people because I know this is something that I'm sure you're probably really good at. That's one reason I want to ask you this. But let's just talk to those people that are thinking about starting a business, or they're new as an entrepreneur and they want to move forward. There is a lot of stuff out there, man. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of shiny objects. I was talking to my I think I even talked to you about this yesterday about how easy it is for me to get distracted, or it used to be. Like my dog, when I take my dog for a walk and she sees a squirrel, it's like, boom, she's off. I used to be that way. And for new entrepreneurs, it can be like a fire hose of things pouring on them and different distractions. So if you were to, just generically, I know you don't know, you'd have to know your coaching student well, but if an entrepreneur came to you and was like, hey, I want to start a business, I want to be successful, I want to be able to walk away from my business over the next 12 months, what would be a simple thing that you would tell them to just laser focus on to get them the biggest impact?
That is a good question. To be honest, I think it still will come down to that vision. And actually, this is kind of my chapter within Air Fryer Secrets is literally on sparking life into business. I think you had alluded to it earlier. You said life teaches us things, and so I use that as a principle to kind of drive forward. And I can kind of briefly go through it here, and it's more details in the book. But life is an acronym for what I use, because I also know too that when being stuck, it's hard to move forward. And it's funny you talk about shiny object syndrome. If you haven't watched the episode with Dan Ryder, who's also in the book with us, he talks about shiny object syndrome, and he throws a monkey wrench in what most people think about it, where he flipped it on its head and gave me an approach with shiny object syndrome as a strength. So I definitely recommend you watching that. But life stands for literally learning whatever it is that you need to learn. I think that we get caught up in that phase. Like you said, we're in the information age, man. This fire hose of information is always open and it's always pouring on us. And it's easy to just get stuck in that particular point. So once you decide what you want and what that vision look like, learn only the things that you have to learn to take the next step. So like you had mentioned earlier, and the Stephen Larson approach, just in time learning. Don't get caught up trying to learn each and everything, because you don't know what you don't know until you need to know it, right? So find out what you need to know initially. And this might be taken away from the focus, but focus on like one or two things that you know that you need to learn in order just to start, or in order just to take another step forward, right? And once you learn it, now the next I is implement. And I say implement, but implement intelligently, right? Because you can implement 20, 30 new things, and everything that Evans is doing might be killing it. Everything Anton's doing might be killing it. So you might be tempted to implement everything he's doing, everything I'm doing, everything Russell Brunson's doing, everything all these guys are doing, but implement intelligently. Implement things that will move the needle forward for you, right, in that particular moment. And once you implement, have some metrics and measure what you just implemented, so you're not implementing 30 new things and not sure what's working, what isn't working. So have that in place. And then the F, man, it stands for fail. People don't want to talk about it, but I think that once you take a different approach to failing and embrace it, I think that's one of the major factors between all successful people. Like, it's almost like they embrace that because they know that through those failures come their successes. And so like Grant Cardone and all these guys, Gary, they work, they do, they fail. But they're just like, whatever, let's keep going, right? Whereas most people, if they fail, they're just like, oh my gosh, what? And they just quit. And so that's one part. And then E stands for just kind of evaluate and elevate your thinking from that particular failure. I look at it like you said, life teaches us stuff, right? As a child, or when you're learning to ride a bike or something like that, you do it, and every time you go through, you start to get better, and then you might fall again. Then you start to get a little bit better, and then you fall again. But as you're going through that process, you're embracing it and you're learning, right? And so one of the things is just to keep going forward, but elevate your level of thinking towards, if I get on a bike and I fall, and it might be, oh, you know what? I forgot to pedal. Next time I get on, I'll pedal, right? And I'll fall again. Oh, crap, I pedaled this time, but I was a little off balance, right? And so like you learn, and you can kind of take the things that you learn and kind of elevate your level of thinking to go back at it stronger, and to just keep going. So that's kind of what my chapter is about. I'm not sure if I was supposed to give that away.
But I'm sure there's still some gold in it, even when you go back and read it. So
yeah, I think it's hard to find the focus point, because if you're getting started, how do you know what to focus on?
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of those things where I just say, how do you know if you're good, if you're going to be good in the game if you never get in? Right. And a lot of times we can sit on the sideline and analyze, oh, I would have thrown that pass, or I would have made that run, or I would have called this play. But then you get in and it's totally different. Right.
Yeah.
It's you might think you're a quarterback, and then now, man, you might supposed to be a pulling guard or something. Right. If I'm using football as an analogy. So it's hard to find that focus point when you're getting started. But I think that when you start doing, and you take an approach to where everything is a learning process, then you can kind of adjust where needed. And once you find that thing that gives you success, then you can start really focusing. But I think when the starting point, it might be a little hard.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So
Okay.
if the focus would be on doing, how about that?
I love that. No, I mean, that's perfect. Cause without, there was I'm not going to even get into that story. It's too long, but I do want to say this because before we wrap up and you tell us where we can reach out to you and some other cool stuff, you just gave me an aha moment just from your sharing that. So I appreciate that. What I want to share with everybody, I started thinking about when you're talking about failing.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be, even in my last business, when we were successful revenue wise, but I wasn't happy. When we failed, I felt it. It was painful. I didn't like it. It gave me constraint, made me pull back.
Yeah.
But now that I've stepped into what feels like my mission and my purpose, when I'm full of joy and I'm enjoying it and in spirit and I fail, I just brush it off and keep going. So I'd never thought of it that way until you so I appreciate you for that. You just gave me an aha. So folks, you got to contact him. He's an awesome coach. He just coached me up and didn't even realize he was doing it. So I think there's a big lesson in that, make sure when you're fulfilling your mission and your purpose and you're happy and you're authentic as an entrepreneur. And obviously from where you were previously, Anton, and you moved to where you are now it makes it easier to fail because you fail, but you're still happy, because everything else around is happy and joyful. So you're like, okay, that's good. That was a lesson. What do I do to make this different? And do it differently. So learning to ride a bike was a great analogy because as a child, that is something that we enjoy doing. So as we're failing, we don't mind getting back up and doing it again. But like if you sit with my daughter and she's doing her math homework and she can't get one of them right, she is ready to quit because she is not happy doing that math homework. So I appreciate that. You gave me a great aha moment. So I'm going to carry that on throughout the day today. So sorry, I went a little inside myself there because it was such a cool moment. But I want to wrap up because we're running out of time and just give you a chance to tell folks, one, maybe some things that you're working on right now that you want to share with them, and then also how they can reach out to you. So if there's anything you want to share with them, anything you're working on now, feel free to go ahead.
For sure. So right now I'm working on, I'm about to launch a new program, a coaching program. One of my big things is I know there are a lot of people where I was in the professional world that want out and they've got these ideas, but they just don't know how to move forward. So a big thing for me is really just going back and helping as many working professionals as possible that want to even, try their hand at entrepreneurship. And so I'm launching a program to help people identify what I call their moneymaker, right? That one skill that they have that they can use and leverage to monetize it. So I'll be opening a beta group for that program soon, where it'll be 6 weeks and we'll identify their moneymaker and literally build a business around it. So stay tuned for that. But for anybody that wants to reach out, you can always visit my website at antongray.com. That's ANTONGRAY.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at iam.agray, iam.agray. And as always, you mind, I can share my book.
Definitely do that, please.
So I wrote a book called Mind Reset, only because, like I said, that was a big part of my journey. That's where I started. And so this book is written as a 10-day mind transformation challenge. And it's designed really just to help you make small mindset shifts and start to think differently about some of the ways you approach certain things. And what it'll help you do is really just kind of dive deep, create that vision for your life, and start moving towards it. And so if anybody wants a copy of that, I'm sure you'll drop a link, but they can just go to free.mindresetbook.com and download the ebook for free.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll definitely, I'll make sure that I'll reach out to you and get all the links you want to share. And we'll put them in the show notes as well.
For
And
sure.
get that out there. So definitely everybody go grab that book. It's free. And I mean, it's a lot of people talk mindset, but you really need, and it's nice to have that guide, because when I started getting back into this and doing it myself, it was a lot of self-learning. And,
Hmm.
you can try harder and still reach your destination, or you can take a quantum leap by getting somebody who's already been there, who provides you with the formula, and
Right.
follow that and get there much quicker. So I've gotten to the point in my life now where I don't like wading through that river all the way to the other side. I'd rather jump from stone to stone to stone and be there, in about 4 hops.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
that's what that book will provide for everybody. So definitely go check it out. So I appreciate it, Anton. Thanks for joining us. This has been a fun 2 days. I've enjoyed being on your show yesterday and then coming back and having you today. So we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge, your value, your wisdom, and taking us on the journey with you.
Evans, man, listen, I'm honored that you'd even have me here, man. So I appreciate you big time, brother.
Yes, thank you again. I appreciate you, and we will talk to you soon. I'm sure we're going to be seeing each other a lot, and promoting that book. So everybody keep an eye out for Air Fryer Secrets, and you can read both of our chapters.
Yeah.